I remember one time I'm in L.A., my wife buys me a gift, a 1-hour session with Aaron Spicer. He's an acting coach, for, Will Smith, J-Lo, some of these guys. And I'm like, hey, man, I have some interest in acting. He says, how do you do with downtime? I said, what do you mean? He says, what happens when you're not working? I said, no, my mind needs to, I need to work always. He says, well, this just may not be the business for you. I said, why? He says, because 90% of the time you're not working. 80, 90% of the time you're not working. And when you're working. But you're not working most of the time. And what are you going to do during that season? How tough is it as an actor, to learn to keep yourself occupied during the downtime so you don't pick up bad habits?
For me, it wasn't, well, I shouldn't say totally wasn't the downtime, but I think for me, the harder part was the Len Bias. Remember Len Bias? Len Bias was the basketball player from the University of Maryland.
Yeah, of course.
The Celtics drafted him.
Yes.
They gave him a $500,000 signing bonus, and he OD'd.
There was a documentary on it, right, where he did cocaine or something happened. Yes. I remember this, yeah.
Yes. So for me, it was being the son of a school teacher and then being handed that kind of money. I mean, my agent, Karan, her name was, and I'm driving a convertible down, Wilshire Boulevard, down by the water there, by where Wilshire meets Ocean. And she calls up and she goes, hey, this is back when cell phones were in a box this big. Remember the giant
Of course,
cell
the
phone?
2000, yeah.
Right. So she calls up and she said, well, look, guess what? They want you to test for the TV show with Valerie Bertinelli, America's sweetheart. Valerie Bertinelli, married to Eddie Van Halen, and she's doing this new show called Sydney. It was me, Matthew Perry, Craig Bierko, Barney Martin, Valerie Bertinelli, blah, blah, blah. So Rebecca Bush, a nice cast, in a sitcom. So I said, okay. And she said, so look, I've got them at 15,000 now. She said, but I think I can get, I'm going to counter at 20. And I think I'll get somewhere around 17.5. And you would go to work, if you get it, it works next week. And I said, okay, well, hang on a second. So that's how many episodes? And she said 13. And I said, okay. So that's over $1,000 a week at 15,000. I go, we're not going to lose the 15 if you counter it. She starts laughing. And I said, why are you laughing? And she went, no, honey, it's $15,000 an episode. And I remember I had to pull my car over. My father made $22,000 a year. I had no idea what we were dealing with. And so she said, no, honey, it's, no, I'm going to try to get 17,500 times 13. I went, 17,000. I'm like, they're going to pay me that to go up there and go, hey, baby. I was like the stupid bar guy, And I thought, really? And I got it. And they paid 17.5, whatever it was, to start the first season. And I just thought, wow, that like the perspective of it is so insane. I mean, I sat there and I said 7 to 10 lines a show. I was the funny guy in the corner, and the rest was history. I never stopped working since then, but I'll never forget having that moment of going, $17,500 a week. And this is in 88 or something like that,
It's a lot of money. I mean, for the average person, it's a lot of money today, but
right.
88, it's a lot of money.
It was a lot of money, And I'm thinking, but the same thing will be true of the why I make movies myself now, because I'd be sitting across from the guy, whoever he was, the producer of the movie, the exec, the guy who owns the negative. And he'd say to me, and they're paying me, whatever, 6 figures, low, middle, whatever, depending upon where I am in my career. And I'd say, what does this guy know about acting, about writing, about directing? He knows nothing, or very little. Nothing that I don't know by now, after 30, 40 films into it. And I've done over 150 movies. So I'm looking at this guy going, why am I doing this for him for $200,000 when I could make it myself? Because if he's paying me too, what's he making by the time he pays everybody? He's got to be making $5 million at least or more. Why don't I do this myself? Now, it's not like I made that many movies that sold for so much money, but certainly there's a lot more money involved when you own it than when you work for somebody else. And I'd much rather do a cool indie film. And again, if you're thinking about calling me and you want the Trump guy, then call me up and I'll go be in your big feature film. But because of my stance politically, I don't think I'm in any of those conversations. Even in smaller parts now, they don't want anything to do with me.
So how do you make money today? What's your method?
I make movies myself. And I'm about to come to ValueNet with my podcast.
Oh, are you really?
No, I was just throwing that out. So I could walk out and say, what are you kidding me? Patrick said. Yeah, no, I was an ESPN analyst on a show with them, a podcast with them. And then before that, I was on Best Damn Sports Show period for Fox.
I think the story you were going to at that time when you went to the story you were saying to Valerie Bertinelli is when I asked you on the downtime. Where were you going to go with the downtime?
Well,
were you going to make a point about when you did have downtime, what it was like?
Yeah, yes. So I think what was more important was when I brought up the story about the money was, what do you do when someone Len biases you and drops off, $200,000, $300,000? I never had money like that. I had no idea what it was like to have that kind of money. Now you're on the list in the downtime, you're in the club, and there's everybody, every face. You're at Cher's house at a party, because you're on TV. And suddenly I had access to things that were ridiculous. And now, again, I'm not a Sheen. I'm not a Carradine. I'm not one of these famous people from famous families that they've been parading these people in front of me my whole life. This is all new to me. And when you're 29 and you're making $500,000 a year from a family that made $22,000 a year, and your brother's really famous too, and your other brothers are coming up and blah, blah, and you're all now, when you become part of pop culture, when in the movie Clueless, they say, he's a Baldwin. Or when they say, South Park says, we need to entice the United States into a war. We must hit them where it hurts them most. I know. We'll bomb the Baldwin Brothers Bel Air complex, and the jets fly over and drop nuclear bombs to entice the U.S. to get. And again, so my agent calls me up and goes, you got to go see South Park. I'm like, South Park, the movie South Park? Yeah, I don't watch the series. I'm on it. You need to go see. So of course I put the baseball cap on. I go into the theater. I watch. I get the joke. But again, when you're part of that kind of, we had a run. We had a nice run there for 15 years.
How long did it last? 15 years?
Yeah, I'd say something like that.
Is this it? Is this the Baldwin? We
Here it is. Look at the Hollywood sign in the background.
I don't know if we can show this one. Okay, this one's going to come back. Yeah, so that's pretty. But 15-year run. So 15 years. You're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but the last 13 and a half years, I've been working on my first fiction book to write, ever. Fiction book to write. And while I finished this book, a year ago, I got the strangest phone call about one of the characters in the book where the guy wanted to meet with me, and he read the book. And afterwards, it's like, wait a minute, am I the villain in the book? This is a story about a character named Asher, who is half Armenian, half Assyrian, whose father was involved in the Iranian Revolution, linked to Savak, working with the Shah, that they escape and he gets recruited to a secret society. Well, when you go to the secret society, it's been around for a couple thousand years. They've developed some of the craziest leaders of all time. And they test you. There's unique tests that they have at this society where they test to see your emotional mental toughness. One of the tests that they have is very rigorous. It's purely mental. Of course, there's a physical one, but one is mental and emotional. If you're Armenian, if you're Syrian, if you're Persian, this is a book you're going to be reading and saying, holy moly, this is the kind of stuff you talk about in here? Yes. If you're somebody that's fascinated by history, this is a book for you. Characters. There's a technology that this society, secret society, builds where you go into a vault. I won't spoil it for you. When you go down, they have a technology where you get to sit down and watch and have a 3-4 hour conversation with Tupac. You can set up a debate between Karl Marx and Ayn Rand. Karl Marx is in the book, who wrote Communist Manifesto. Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged, is in the book. Marilyn Monroe explains the concept of seduction and sex in the book. When you read the book, it's about development of the next leaders in the world and how they do it and how they've been doing it for many years. And it's also about how to prevent the end of civilization and how this organization goes about doing it. So, I've never written a parenting book before, but if I ever wrote a parenting book, this is the closest thing to it because it's all mindset, a lot of crazy stories. Again, 13 and a half years. Trust me, I told myself I will not publish this book until I sell my insurance company and I'm fully disconnected from it, where it's no longer my responsibility 100%. When you read this, if you're a creative person, if you like fiction books, if you enjoyed Atlas Shrugged, or if you enjoy Divergent, if you like books like that, I think you're going to enjoy reading this book. It's the creative side. Business books is very easy. Here's how you do it. Here's how this how it works. This is very creative. If you haven't placed the order yet, now you can order it on Simon & Schuster, Amazon. I'm going to put the link up below somewhere here, maybe even in my profile. Go order the book and read it. I've never written a book where I can't wait to read your reviews to see what you think about this book. So I'm going on this wild journey, and we have some plans with this book here. If you support the things that I work on, I would appreciate you going and reading the book. order the book on Amazon, and then post a review. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.